She hissed when I touched her wing, then blushed and leaned in closer. The night was quiet in the small town of Elmsfield. The forest behind the hills stood dark and still. Only the sound of crickets filled the air. Jacob Reed was fixing the chain of his old dirt bike near his small garage. He was a lonely man, tall and kind, who spoke more to machines than to people. Suddenly, the sky flashed green. A burning streak shot across the clouds like a fireball. It hit the woods with a loud boom that shook the ground. Birds flew out screaming, and a sharp wind pushed Jacob back. "What the hell was that?" he whispered, dropping his wrench. Without thinking, he jumped on his bike and rode toward the trees. Something inside him said it wasn't just a meteor. It felt different. He reached the crash site after 10 minutes. There was smoke rising, and the trees were broken in a circle. In the middle, a silver pod was half buried in the dirt. It hissed with heat, glowing faint blue along its edges. Jacob stepped forward carefully. Then something inside moved. The pod cracked open like a flower, and steam poured out. He backed away, heart racing. A figure crawled out slowly. It was a girl, but not like any girl Jacob had seen. She had soft silver skin and glowing purple eyes. Her long white hair was tangled, and her wings, yes, wings hung weakly from her back like they were hurt. She collapsed to the ground, coughing. Jacob rushed forward and bent beside her. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. Her eyes opened wide, and she hissed sharply like a warning. Her wings flared once, even though they looked broken. Jacob froze, hands raised. "I won't hurt you," he said. But she didn't understand, or maybe she didn't believe him. She tried to stand but fell again. That's when Jacob noticed dark blue blood on her side. She was hurt bad. He knew if he left her here, she would die before sunrise. "Look, I don't know who you are," he said, voice shaking, "but I'm not leaving you here." Slowly, gently, he reached for her arm. The moment his hand brushed the base of her wing, she hissed louder. But then something strange happened. She blushed, her cheeks turning light violet, and instead of pulling away, she leaned a little closer. Jacob stared, unsure what just happened. Did she trust him, or was she too weak to fight? He wrapped her in his old jacket and carried her to his bike. She was lighter than he thought, but her body felt hot like a fever. He placed her on the back and held her close as he drove home. All the way, she said nothing, but she kept looking at him like she was trying to read his mind. When they reached his house, Jacob laid her on his couch. He tried to clean her wound but didn't know where to start. Her skin healed strangely fast but looked painful. He whispered, "You're gonna be okay." Not knowing if that was true, he brought her water, but she didn't drink. Instead, she pointed at a glowing device on her wrist. It flashed symbols, none of them in English, but one blinked red like a warning. Then the screen went dark. Jacob leaned closer and gently touched the screen. It shocked him slightly, then made a soft chime. The alien girl looked at him with surprise and something else. She whispered a word he didn't understand. That night, Jacob couldn't sleep. He sat in the chair beside her, watching her chest rise and fall. Outside, strange lights flashed again in the forest, quick and sharp, like searchlights. He didn't know it yet, but others were coming. Not all of them wanted her alive. She hissed when I touched her wing, then blushed and leaned in closer. Jacob woke up to silence. He had fallen asleep in the chair beside the strange girl with wings. His neck ached, and the sky outside had turned a soft blue. Morning had come, but nothing felt normal. The girl was no longer on the couch. Jacob stood quickly, heart pounding. He grabbed a wrench, his only weapon, and moved slowly through the house. Every room was quiet, but something moved in the shadows. He found her in the garage, standing near his workbench. She was wearing his old flannel shirt, way too big for her. Her wings twitched slightly, still bruised. She was staring at a hanging screwdriver like it was a deadly weapon. "Hey," Jacob said gently. "It's okay, you're safe here." She turned quickly, eyes glowing faint purple. For a second, he thought she might attack, but then her shoulders dropped. And she whispered, "No hunt here." "You speak English now?" Jacob asked, surprised. "Translator sync during rest," she replied, pointing to the small glowing piece on her neck. Her voice was soft but sharp, like someone trained to survive. She walked toward him slowly, then stopped at arm's length. Jacob looked at her wings. They shimmered under the light, damaged, but beautiful. "I was trying to help last night," he said. "Your wing. I didn't mean to hurt you." He reached out gently again, just to show kindness. Her reaction was fast. She hissed just like before, her eyes fierce. But the next moment, she blushed again, her body relaxing. Then slowly she took a small step closer. "No touch, wing," she said, voice shaking a little. "Sensitive, very." Jacob blinked, unsure if she meant it hurt or something else entirely. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I didn't know." She nodded once, then looked away, like hiding her face. They stood in silence for a few seconds, until a strange clicking sound came from outside. Ashari's head snapped toward the door. Her wings tightened, and she whispered, "They're here." Jacob stepped back, confused. "Who's here?" She didn't answer. Instead, she walked quickly to the front door and placed her hand on the wood. Her eyes turned bright, too bright, and she muttered something in her alien language. A small blue shield shimmered across the doorframe for a second, then vanished. "That'll stop them," she said. "For now." Jacob grabbed his keys and checked outside through the window. No cars, no people, just trees swaying in the wind. "I don't see anything," he said. Shari walked to him and spoke low. "They don't need roads," she said. "They are scouts invisible to your kind." Then she pulled a small cube from her pocket and placed it on the table. It unfolded, projecting a hologram of a starship sleek and deadly. "These are the Takari hunters," she said. "They want me dead." "Why?" Jacob asked, confused. "Because I ran," she said. "I was built for war, not freedom." Jacob sat down slowly, trying to understand. "You mean you were made?" She nodded. "Born in tube, trained to fly and fight, wings used for battle control." She looked down at them, pain in her eyes. "Not for beauty." He looked at her, and for the first time, didn't see an alien. He saw someone tired of running, tired of being a weapon. "Why me?" he asked. "Why come to Earth?" Her voice cracked. "Because humans do not give up." Before Jacob could answer, the lights flickered. The cube on the table glowed red and beeped twice. Ashari grabbed it fast. "Scan detected," she said. "They found the crash site. We need to go." "To where?" Jacob asked. "They're aliens. Where do you even hide from that?" Ashari walked to the window and looked at the horizon. "Somewhere old," she said. "Somewhere forgotten." She turned to him with urgency. "Do you trust me?" Jacob didn't speak for a moment, but then he nodded. "I don't know what this is," he said, "but I'm not letting them take you." A strange look passed over her face, almost like hope. She touched his hand briefly, her fingers cold and trembling. "If I fall," she said, "don't let them take my wings." Then she stepped out the door, and Jacob followed her into the rising dawn. Behind them, deep in the forest, something shimmered like metal moving through air. The hunters were close, and they were not alone. She hissed when I touched her wing, then blushed and leaned in closer. The air was still, almost too still. Jacob and Ashari walked through the woods, keeping to the shadow of the trees. Ashari's wings were folded tightly against her back, hiding their fragile tips. The soft sound of her breath mixed with the rustling leaves. Every few steps she looked over her shoulder as if someone might be following. Jacob didn't know what he was doing. He had no plan, no idea how to keep her safe, but he couldn't leave her alone, not after everything. She had saved him in a way, and now they were both in this together. He glanced at her, but she wasn't looking at him. Her eyes were fixed ahead, sharp and focused, like a hunter herself. "Where are we going?" Jacob asked, trying to break the silence. "To the old mine," Ashari replied, her voice low. "It's far enough from the crash site. "I thought you said they were invisible," he said. "How can they find us? They can track energy," she said. "A beacon of sorts from the ship." Jacob didn't understand what she meant. He only knew one thing for sure. They were being hunted. Every rustle of the leaves made him jump. Every crack of a branch, every gust of wind felt like the hunters were closing in. They reached the mine entrance by noon. It looked like nothing more than a pile of rocks and overgrown vines. Ishari walked up to it like she had been here 100 times. She pressed her hand to the cold stone, and it hummed. The rock shifted, revealing a hidden entrance. Jacob followed her inside, his heart pounding. The air was thick with dust and age, the scent of old earth and long-forgotten things. As they stepped deeper into the darkness, Ishari tapped a button on her wristband. A soft blue light illuminated the tunnel ahead. She didn't stop until they reached a small chamber deep inside. It was cold, and there were strange symbols carved into the walls. "Why here?" Jacob asked. "Why the mine?" Ishari turned to face him, her eyes softer than before. "This place was built before my people," she said. "It's hidden, but it's also a safe place for me. No one knows it like I do." The walls seemed to close in around them as Ishari stepped forward. She knelt beside a strange machine buried in the ground. "It's old," she said, "but it can help." She began working on it, her hands moving with precision. Jacob stood back watching her. He wanted to ask her about her past, about what had happened to her, but something about her silence made him hold back. Her wounds were healing, but the pain in her eyes didn't go away. Suddenly, there was a loud crack, a noise from the entrance. Someone was outside. Jacob spun around, his heart racing. Ishari froze, her eyes flashing. "They found us," she whispered. "Hide," she said urgently. "Get in there." She pointed to a small nook hidden behind a rock. Jacob hesitated, but only for a moment. He squeezed into the small space, barely able to move. Through the crack in the stone, he could see Ishari's tense form as she stood at the ready, her wings unfurled slightly, the edges glowing faintly. And then something dark moved across the entrance. The hunters were here. Jacob's breath caught in his throat as he watched them. They were different from what he expected, tall and cloaked in dark armor, their faces hidden by visors that reflected the faint light from the tunnel. Ishari didn't speak. She stood perfectly still, watching them approach. One of the hunters stepped forward, his voice mechanical. "We know you're here, Ishari." Her wings flared slightly, but she didn't respond. "We've come for you," the hunter said. "It's time to come back to the Empire." Jacob's hand tightened around the rock he was holding. He didn't know what they wanted with her, but he knew he wasn't going to let them take her. "You're not taking her," Jacob whispered, barely able to breathe. Ishari's eyes flicked to him for a brief moment. Then, in a voice like steel, she said, "I'm not going back." The hunter's response was a low growl. "Then we'll make you." And with that, the hunters began to move into the mine. The sound of their footsteps echoed in the dark louder than Jacob had ever heard. Ishari didn't flinch. She looked down at the small device in her hand. Her eyes were hard, and her jaw set. "I'll make them regret this," she whispered. Jacob's heart was racing. He wasn't ready for this. But he had no choice now. He was going to protect her, no matter what it took. The chamber was about to erupt in chaos, and he was right in the middle of it. "Asterisk," she hissed when I touched her wing, then blushed and leaned in closer. The mine was silent again. The hunters were close, their heavy footsteps growing louder. Jacob's chest tightened with fear. He watched Ishari, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark, her wings twitching in response to the tension. "They're coming," Jacob whispered, his voice barely audible. Ishari nodded. Her gaze locked on the entrance, but she didn't move. Instead, she reached up and pressed a small button on her wristband. The light in the chamber flickered for a moment, then steadied. "We need to buy time," she said, her voice calm but determined. Jacob didn't understand how she could stay so calm with danger so close. "What's the plan?" he asked, his mind racing. Ishari turned to him, her expression serious. I need you to trust me, she said. I'll take care of them. But I need your help. Before Jacob could respond, Ashari began to move towards the device she had been working on earlier. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls, typing in commands with ease. The machine hummed to life, its lights blinking steadily. What is that? Jacob asked. It's a defense system, she explained. It was built long before the Takari Empire, but it will hide us just for a little while. The machine's lights flashed brighter, and then, as if by magic, the walls around them shimmered. The entire chamber was covered by a faint invisible barrier. Jacob blinked, trying to understand. So they won't see us, he asked. Ashari smiled faintly. Not unless they have a stronger signal. But we don't have much time. Just then, a low, mechanical voice echoed from the entrance of the mine. We know you're here, Ashari, the hunter said. The time for running is over. Ashari's grip on the device tightened, but she didn't speak. Her mind was focused on something else now, something Jacob couldn't see. She turned to him, her eyes softening for the first time. Jacob, she whispered, there's more I need to tell you. He moved closer, his heart racing. What is it? He asked. Everything, she said. Everything you know about me is a lie. I was born for one purpose, she continued. I was created to be the perfect soldier. My people, the Takari, engineered me to fight, to obey. But I wasn't like them, Jacob. She took a step closer, her voice trembling now. I ran because I wanted to choose my own path, Jacob. Didn't know what to say. His mind was spinning with the new information. You weren't just sent here to hide, he said slowly. No, she whispered. I was sent here to end something. But I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't kill, not after what I saw. She looked down at her hands, her wings drooping. Slightly, I wasn't supposed to feel, she said. But I did. Jacob reached out, his hand brushing hers. What does that mean for us? He asked. I don't know, she replied, her eyes meeting his. But we can't run forever. Jacob, they will find us, and when they do. She trailed off. And Jacob knew she didn't need to finish that sentence. The weight of it was clear in her eyes. Then we'll fight, he said, his voice steady now. We'll fight them together. Ashari's eyes softened. For the first time, she didn't seem like a soldier. She seemed like a person, just like him, Jacob. You don't know what you're saying, she whispered. You don't understand. But Jacob didn't back away. I understand more than you think, he said. I'm not afraid. We'll make it through this, I promise. Just then, the wall shimmered again. The hunters were still searching, their voices growing louder. I'm not leaving you, Jacob said firmly. Ashari turned away, a look of hesitation crossing her face. For a moment, she seemed like she was battling with herself. Finally, she took a deep breath. I never wanted to hurt anyone, she said, her voice barely a whisper. I just wanted to be free. Jacob reached out, touching her shoulder gently. You are free, he said softly, and I'll help you stay that way. She looked at him, her eyes filling with gratitude. Thank you, she said quietly. Then she turned back to the machine. Adjusting the controls one last time. We don't have much time, she said. Get ready. The chamber seemed to pulse with energy. Jacob's heart raced as the hunters' voices grew louder. The walls around them shimmered, and for a brief moment, everything felt like it was falling apart. But in that moment, Jacob realized something important. He was no longer alone. He was fighting for something worth saving, and that something was standing right in front of him. She hissed when I touched her wing, then blushed and leaned in closer. The mine was silent once more, but the air felt heavy. Jacob and Ashari stood side by side, waiting, outside. The Takari hunters were close, too close. Ashari wings were tucked tightly against her back, the tips almost trembling. We can't keep hiding forever, Jacob said, his voice low. I know, she replied, her tone serious. But I'm not ready to fight. Not yet, at least. She turned to him, her eyes dark with something he couldn't quite understand. Fighting means losing part of myself. Jacob, she whispered. losing the last piece of humanity I have left. Jacob reached out, touching her arm gently. I'm not letting you do this alone, he said. You've been running for too long. HFY's gaze softened, just for a moment. But what if running is all I know? She whispered. What if I can't stop being what I was made to be? Jacob shook his head. You're not what they made you. He stepped closer, his voice firm. You're more than that. She looked away, her eyes distant, like she was struggling with something deep inside. The tension in the air thickened as the sound of footsteps grew louder. It wasn't just one hunter anymore. It was a whole squad, coming right for them. HFY. Wings twitched at the noise, her body tensing. They're here, she said, her voice sharp. We need to move, Jacob said quickly. If we don't, they'll have us cornered. But HFY didn't move. She stood frozen, staring. At the entrance to the mine, I can't run anymore. Jacob, she said softly, I can't keep hiding, but I can't fight them either. Jacob didn't know what to say. He could see the conflict in her eyes, the fear of losing herself. He reached out, grabbing her hand. Then we fight together. He said, we don't have to fight alone. She finally met his gaze, her eyes full of something she hadn't shown him before. Hope. Together? She asked quietly. He nodded. Yes, together. The sound of footsteps grew louder again, the hunters closing in. But this time, HFY moved not away, but toward the entrance. She stepped into the open, standing tall, her wings unfurled. In a dramatic display, the hunters paused, their eyes flickering with uncertainty. You know you can't stop me, one of them said, his voice mechanical. We don't have to fight, HFY replied. I'm not your weapon anymore. But if you want to take me down, you'll have to go through him first. She pointed to Jacob, standing just behind her. The hunters looked at him with surprise, then back to her. They didn't know what to make of this new development. You're making a mistake, one of the hunters warned. You have no idea who you're up against. HFY didn't flinch. I've learned more than you think. Then, without warning, she moved, her wings spread wide, creating a shield of energy that crackled in the air. The hunters stepped back, taken off guard, but they weren't done yet. One of them lunged forward, drawing a sharp energy blade. Jacob's heart raced as the hunter swung it toward them. Without thinking, Jacob stepped forward, pushing HFY behind him. The blade clashed against his jacket, but it didn't cut through. The energy felt hot against his skin, but he didn't back down. HFY's eyes flashed. She stepped forward and grabbed the hunter by the wrist, twisting it with unnatural speed. The hunter yelped, dropping his blade. Before he could react, HFY's wings flared once again, sending a burst of energy through the air. The hunter was thrown back, slamming into the stone wall. He didn't move after that. Jacob stood in shock. He had never seen anything like that before. HFY turned to him, her breath heavy. Are you okay? She asked, her voice softer. Now Jacob nodded. Yeah, but that was insane. But there was no time to celebrate. More hunters were coming. This time they were ready. Their weapons were drawn, their movements quick and precise. HFY looked at Jacob one last time, her face set in determination. Stay close, she said. We need to finish this now. Jacob stepped forward, standing by her side. Together, they faced the incoming storm, and Jacob knew one thing for sure. He wasn't backing down. Asterisk, she hissed when I touched her wing, then blushed and leaned in closer. The sky above was filled with stars. But something was wrong. Jacob stared up at the darkened sky, his heart racing. The calm of the night had shifted into something strange. A massive dark shape appeared, blocking out the stars. It wasn't a cloud. It was a ship. HFY stood beside him, her eyes fixed on the craft. It's them, she whispered. The Takari fleet, they've come. Jacob looked at her, his voice thick with confusion. How did they find us? Their scanners are designed to track any energy. Source from my people, she said, her face pale. I should have known it wouldn't take them long. They're just above us, Jacob said. his voice trembling slightly. Yes, she replied. And now they're here to finish what they started. I should have never run. The ship above them was enormous. Its shape sleek and intimidating. Its hull reflected the faint light of the distant stars. It seemed to hover just above them. As though watching, waiting, Jacob's stomach twisted with the realization. They weren't alone anymore, and their time had just run out. Suddenly, a sharp, cold voice broke through the silence. "Eshari," it said. "Return to the ship, or we will destroy this planet." The words echoed in the air, chilling to the bone. Eshari stiffened, her body tense. "Is that a threat?" Jacob asked, his voice low. "They'll do it," she said softly. "The Takari won't hesitate. I'm their prisoner, and they will burn this world to the ground if I don't go with them." Jacob shook his head, not without a fight. He turned toward the woods, his mind racing. "We can't just give up." Eshari grabbed his arm, her touch firm but gentle. "No, Jacob, you don't understand," she said urgently. "They won't stop coming, and if they're here, it's not just me they'll hunt. They'll destroy everything, everyone." Jacob's heart clenched at the thought. "Then we leave," he said, his eyes fierce. "We run, and we don't stop, we fight back." Eshari shook her head. "We can't," she said. "There's nowhere left to hide. If I go with them, I can stop it. But you won't be safe here, Jacob." The ship above them hummed louder. Another voice joined the first, deeper, more menacing. "Eshari, you cannot escape your fate." It growled. "You were made for this." The words made Jacob's blood run cold. Eshari's face twisted in pain, but she didn't look away. "I wasn't made for this," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I was made to be a weapon, a tool of war. But I'm not anymore," she said, lifting her chin. "I refuse to be their tool any longer. I won't go back." Jacob stepped closer to her. "Then let's do it together," he said. "We face them together." She met his eyes, her gaze softening for the first time since they'd met. She had never believed in people, in connections until now. "I'm scared, Jacob," she said quietly. "What if I can't control it? What if I hurt you, or worse, what if I lose myself?" Jacob's hand found hers, holding it tightly. "You won't lose yourself," he said. "I won't let you." She squeezed his hand back, her grip steady now. "I don't know if I can keep you safe," she said, "but I'll fight for you." They both looked up at the ship as it began to descend. The time was running out. Jacob's heart raced as he scanned the area. His mind was running through every possibility, every escape route, but there was only one option left. He turned to Eshari, his voice filled with determination. "We fight now, and we win." Eshari's wings twitched at the words. She nodded slowly, her eyes blazing with the first flicker of hope. Together, they would make their stand, and no matter the odds, they wouldn't go down without a fight. The ship lowered further, a dark shadow in the sky. Jacob knew there was no turning back now, and neither did Eshari. She was ready to face the Takari, and ready to fight for something she never thought she could have: freedom. The battle was about to begin, but with Jacob by her side, she wasn't afraid anymore. She hissed when I touched her wing, then blushed and leaned in closer. The ship loomed above them, its shadow swallowing the sky. Jacob stood beside Eshari, his heart pounding in his chest. The Takari fleet had arrived, their massive ships now hovering just above the ground. Eshari's wings fluttered once, her expression fierce. She was ready for whatever came next. But Jacob, he was still holding on to hope. "They're not going to stop," Eshari said, her voice steady. "Not until I go with them. Not until they take me back to their war. But I won't let them control me anymore. Not again." Jacob didn't say anything. He just looked at her, this alien girl who had fought for her freedom, who had risked everything to be with him. "Then we fight," he said simply, his voice full of determination. "I won't let you go back." "Eshari." Eshari turned to him, her eyes searching his face. Her wings fluttered again, glowing faintly, and then she smiled, just for a moment. "I'm glad you're with me," she said softly. I never wanted to fight alone, but I think maybe we can fight together." They both turned to face the descending ship. The doors opened, and figures began to emerge, tall, armored beings with cold metallic faces. They moved like shadows, their eyes glowing with an unnatural light. The lead hunter spoke, his voice mechanical. "Ashari, your time is up. Come quietly, and we will spare the human." Jacob stepped forward, his fists clenched. "I'm not afraid of you," he said, his voice strong. The hunters looked at him with curiosity, then turned back to Ashari. "We've given you a chance to surrender," the hunter said. "Now it's time to end this." Ashari's wings flared, sending a pulse of energy into the air. The hunter stepped back, momentarily stunned by the force of her power. She looked at Jacob, her eyes meeting his. "I can't go back," she whispered. "Not now, not after everything I've learned, everything I've felt." With a swift motion, Ashari moved forward. Her wings spread wide as she summoned the power within them. The energy crackled in the air, vibrant and wild. But Jacob wasn't just standing behind her, he was with her. He grabbed her hand, holding it tight. "We're not backing down," he said. "Together, Ashari, together." The energy built, swirling around them both. The hunters raised their weapons, ready to strike. But just as they charged, the ground beneath them shook. A loud, deafening roar echoed through the air. It was the ship. It was charging its weapons, and it was aiming straight at them. Ashari's wings began to glow brighter, her power rising. "I won't let them destroy this place," she said fiercely. "I will protect this world, our world." The hunters hesitated, sensing her resolve. And that's when Jacob realized something. Ashari had changed. She wasn't the cold weapon they had created. She was something else now. Something human. Together, they stood hand in hand. Ashari's wings spread wide, her body glowing with energy. Jacob felt it too, his heart racing, his body pulsing with the same power that she commanded. He wasn't just fighting for her. He was fighting for everything they had built together, for the future they both wanted. The first blast from the ship came, but Ashari blocked it with a surge of energy from her wings. The air exploded with power, a bright blue light flashing in every direction. The hunters stumbled back, surprised by the force of her defense. Jacob held his breath, waiting for the next move. But Ashari didn't hesitate. She moved forward, her wings cutting through the air like a blade. In one swift motion, she took out the ship's main weapon, disabling its core. The hunters were caught off guard, their plans unraveling before their eyes. With the core disabled, the ship began to fall, its engines sputtering. Ashari and Jacob stood together, watching as the enemy ship plummeted to the earth. The hunters scattered, retreating into the chaos, and for the first time, Ashari felt a sense of freedom. She had done it. They had done it. Jacob turned to her, his face full of disbelief. "Did we just?" She smiled softly, her wings folding against her back. "We did," she said. "We made our stand and we won." Jacob reached out, touching her wing gently. Her wings flinched at the contact, but she didn't pull away. Instead, she closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. "I don't know what comes next," she whispered, "but I know we're in this together." Jacob smiled, his heart full. "Whatever comes next," he said, "we'll face it together, and we won't be afraid." The sun began to rise, casting light over the battlefield. And as Jacob and Ashari stood side by side, they knew this was just the beginning of their new life, together, a life without fear, without control, a life where they were free,